Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Hamill bringing you a lesson on graphing inequalities. To start with, we are going to review how to graph a linear equation. This should be familiar to you all because we just did this in the last couple of units. Remember that we are looking at equations in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope, your rise over run. The rise, remember, is your y value. The run is the x value. And b is the y-intercept. So to graph an equation, we are going to want to put the equation into the y equals mx plus b form. Then we're going to want to plot your b, which is in this equation, is -2. So we're going to start at the point -2. And then we're going to use our slope of 3/4 to move +3 in the y direction and then +4 in the x direction. So we're going to move 1, 2, 3 in the y direction, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the x direction. We're going to plot that point. Now we're going to connect that line. And there is the graph of our line, y equals 3/4 x minus 2. In the next example, we will first need to solve for y before we can graph the equation. Remember that when you're trying to get the y value by itself, that the first thing you want to do is move your x value using addition or subtraction. Remember, it's the opposite operation. And then the second is to divide by the number in front of y. So in our example here, we have 4x minus 12y equals 48. So again, first you're going to move the x. Since this is a positive 4x, we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. So that's going to make your x's cancel. We're left with -12y equals. Remember, you always want to write the x value first, so that way it is written in your y equals mx plus b form. Then we're going to divide both sides by -12. And remember, you want to divide every term by that -12. So those 12s are going to cancel, and you're going to be left with y equals a negative divided by a negative is going to give you a positive 4/12, which is the same as 1/3 x. And then a positive divided by a negative is going to give you a negative, and 48 divided by 12 is 4. So we're first going to plot our y-intercept at -4. Then we're going to rise 1 in the y direction and move 3 in the x direction. So there is our second point. So again, we're going to draw our line, and there is the graph of our equation. So when we are graphing linear inequalities, we are still going to put the equation into y equals mx plus b form. The only difference is that we need to remember, if we divide by a negative, just like when we were solving our other types of inequalities, we are going to flip the inequality sign. Okay? So, when we are looking at these, we're going to check what kind of line it is, and then we're going to connect our dots and what type of shading it is, and then shade. So when we look at our type of line and where to shade, we are going to be looking at the type of line, if it is a greater than or less than symbol with no equal sign, we're going to use a dotted line. So that's going to look like this. If you have your greater than or equal to sign, or less than or equal to sign, it has the equal sign, we're going to use a solid line. So that line is still going to be your standard line like we used in the first two examples. So where to shade, we have 4 choices. If you have a less than or equal to, you're going to shade below the line. If you have a X, I'm going to write a better X here. If X is less than some number, then remember you're going to be shading to the left. If you have a greater than or the greater than or equal to symbol, you're going to be shading above the line. And if X is greater than the number, you're going to be shading to the right. So let's do some examples where we can actually see this in action. So our first example, y is greater than 2/3 x minus 1. So again, we're going to start with our y-intercept of -1, and then we're going to use our slope of 2/3. So that means we're going to go up 2, to the right 3, and that's where we're going to plot our second point. This is where we're going to take a look at our symbol. So we said that if it does not have an equal sign, we're going to use a dotted line. So when we draw this line through these points, it's going to be dotted just like this. Then if we look at our chart, we notice that this is a greater than symbol. So we're going to be shading above the line. So shading above the line. On the next example, y is less than or equal to -5x plus 3. So again, we're going to start with our y-intercept of 3. Plot that. And then remember that this means -5 over 1. So we're going to go down 5 and to the right +1. And that's going to be our second point. Because this has an equal sign with it, we're going to draw a solid line through those points. Let's try this again, make a solid line. Okay, and then this is a less than symbol. So again, we're going to be shading below the line since that's a less than symbol. All right, in the last example, we need to solve and put this in y equals mx plus b form before we can start to graph. So again, we're going to move our x value to the opposite side. Since it was a positive 3x, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. So we're left with -4y is greater than or equal to -3x minus 8. We're always going to write that x term first. We divided by -4. As soon as I say to myself I'm dividing by a negative, I also need to remember to flip my inequality sign. So those will cancel. I'm left with y is less than or equal to, a negative divided by negative is going to be a positive 3/4 x. -8 divided by -4 is going to give me a positive 2. Now we're going to graph that. Our y-intercept is at 2. We're going to go up 3 to the right 4. So that's where our line is. Because there is an equal sign in my inequality, I'm going to use a solid line. So there's our graph, and this is a less than symbol, so then this is going to be shaded below the line. In this example, y equals 3. Well, this is where y equals 3, and remember that this is going to be a horizontal line. Y is less than 3, so we're going to shade below the line. X is 3 right here at this point. Again, we're going to, and actually, sorry, we should have actually made this, because this is a less than symbol, this should have been a dotted line. My apologies. So x is 3. Again, there is no equal sign, so we're going to use a dotted line. And then x is less than 3, so we're going to be shading to the right. And in our last example, again, we're going to have to solve for y. So we subtract 2x from both sides. 3y is less than negative 2x plus 15. Divide both sides by 3, making sure that we divide every term by 3. So y is less than, we have negative 2 divided by 3, so we're going to give that negative 2/3 x. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So our y-intercept is at 5. And then we're going to go down 2 to the right 3. And because, again, we have no equal sign underneath this, we're going to use a dotted line. And less than symbol, we are shading below the line. Now that we have completed the notes, please go ahead and complete problems 1 through 6 on the back of your note sheet.